came into the party through Dr. Omar Davis because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through my relationship with him.
From his screen. We don't come to make no money over politics. He done make my money already. Now big lawyer in this country, big investment banker.
Whilst most people know Mark because of his being a top lawyer and a key man in the financial sector, comrades, this man is all round. He's multifaceted. On November 7th, I want you, comrades, to join me and go with Golden.
The high interest rate policy of Omar and the PNP has been one of the most destructive forces in the history of Jamaica's economy. It led to the financial sector collapse, where over 40 financial institutions went. Entrepreneurs that previously had been heralded by him, some of them are exiles abroad now. Many entrepreneurs lost their businesses. Many companies that were over 100 years old in Jamaica were destroyed and sold to foreigners. That is the legacy. And even one of his colleagues who sits in this room today described it as the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich since the abolition of slavery.
I come from his screen. We don't come to make no money over politics. He done make my money already.
Shock, which began in 1991 in Jamaica, ballooned unchecked over the next 5 years until it exploded with a catastrophic bang in 1996. The explosion left shrapnel scattered over the financial landscape, which still impacted on the economy so many years later. The government's response to the financial crisis of the 1990s, and she has, as we have said, written her book, Too Black to Succeed, the FinSAC Experience, on the phone lines. Lady President of the UNIA Kingston Chapter, educator, author, entrepreneur, and grandmother. My sister Valerie Dixon,
So what I want to bring out this morning is that a lot of people do not understand where this thing came from. And I want to just read a little from an appendix that was written in the Observer some time ago. It says, when Omar Davis, then PNP Finance Minister in the 1990s, began the process of dismantling the Central National Bank, it was done immediately after the Don Crawford-run entity had bought a significant sum of US dollars at a few dollars more than the price that the official exchange rate indicated. The bank did nothing which other banks were not doing in a time when an inept PNP government was struggling with managing a market economy which it knew little or nothing about.
Came into the party through Dr. Omar Davis because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through my relationship with him.
With blood rushing to its head when this action was revealed, an embarrassed PNP government set about withdrawing public funds from the Central National Bank, making it publicly known. And in the process, it started or triggered a run on the bank which was seemingly designed to end its life. That, however, is a sad history for the most progressive bank existing in Jamaica at that time. So if you withdraw money from the most progressive bank at the time, what do you think is bound to happen? It is going to trigger what is known as a domino effect. There's going to be a run or a rush on the bank for people trying to get out their monies. And we do not understand, most of us, what the effect or the repercussions or the consequences of such a run on a bank would actually do. And again, we ask the question, the government contented itself to believe that companies which had been conducting business successfully for decades were suddenly struck en masse with ineptitude, stupidity, and amnesia as to how to properly run a business.
Explain to us, Val, what did the government do exactly? Because we only talk about the FinSac debacle. What exactly are we talking about?
Okay. You went to your bed last night and interest rate, let's say for argument's sake, is at 30%. You wake up this morning and you see a headline in the newspaper that says government to increase interest rate to 64%. Please tell me which business would be able to fill that gap between paying interest rate at 30% and suddenly jump with no notice to paying interest rate at 60 and probably more. Overdraft interest rate went up overnight to 120%.
And the impact of that action on businesses was what you are describing.
That is exactly what I'm describing. So how is it that these people who are running business for over all these decades suddenly overnight become bad debtors? Do you see the point I'm making there?
Yes, as a matter of fact,
we were villainized.
Yes.
We were hounded down like common criminals. And we had to watch our businesses go up in smoke. While foreign investors came in, they got tax breaks, they got tax holidays, and we were what? Flung aside and discarded as rubbish. We were called bad debtors.
As part of the fallout from the FinSac folly has been the summary dismissal of the thousands of productive Jamaican business persons as bad debtors. And this is what you're saying.
Yes, that after more than a century of successful Jamaican businesses, the 1990s ushered in a period in which the positive relationship between productive entrepreneurs and their financial partners or banks came to a crashing halt. Thousands of healthy Jamaican businesses, some of which had grown to become regional and world beaters, were disdainfully discarded by our national economic stewards as bad debtors. And yet they brought in a white Texan man to set up what I call a usury company and sold him our assets at 5 cents in the dollar.
Why is Jamaica silent then on the FinSac Commission report?
Because most of us as black Jamaicans, we have lost it. We have lost our cojones. Go look that up. That is Spanish. Our spine gets soft like cooked macaroni. There is one lady, and I have to give credit where credit is due, Yola Baker. She has been the first lone voice in the wilderness crying out for justice. And I don't know if it's because she's a woman, why she was treated with such ridicule at times. As if this woman mad, she don't know what she's talking about. And yet when you hear who is living in our house, you eye them open big like saucer.
And you're talking about these houses now that was sold
by this Texan who came and bought our assets for a mere song and a dance, and then resold it for profit. And most of the people who bought our assets were well connected in politics.
We don't come to make no money out of politics. We done make my money already. Now big liar in this country, big investment banker.
Whilst most people know Mark because of his being a top lawyer and a key man in the financial sector, comrades, this man is all round. He's multifaceted. On November 7th, I want you, comrades, to join me and go with Golden.
If I tell you who got my house, but I can't do that because you know how this is Jamaica.
Time to step up and get busy and get wicked on them too. Why you think this thing will come easy?
We have to just clear our throats around certain things. But this is a travesty of justice that should never go unpunished.
and
when you look and see what people bought our assets for, that we worked so hard and honestly for.
And this is why I'm saying to Jamaicans, please read Valerie's book, because she takes us on this journey. And one of the things that made me cry, Valerie, when you first told this story, my sister, you were in the studio, and I read it because you wrote about it in the book. And I know we have just a few minutes to go, but that is a story that tugged on my heart as a daughter, as a sister, when I read it, about how you found out that you'd lost your house and what you saw in a vehicle in terms of your clothes, and what you felt and how dejected you felt, and you know, that whole, just the way you told that story and how it's written in the book, I saw the tears literally dropped onto the page as I was reading, because I felt your pain through those pages.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you know, and that is just part of the experience.
And that was just part of what happened to
yes.
us, whose only crime was to create employment for Jamaicans. Because when my husband was at the top of his game, of course, you know, you're going to have the bad-minded people and who's the boy, the Dixon, and this, that, and that. But he was employing from degreed architect, degreed people come right down to murderer who are wait for getting sentenced as the person who is manual labor and push barrow. That is the amount, that is the extent of what we were doing for our country as black people, as black producers, as black entrepreneurs. And this is the experience that Mythic Nigeria had to go through because of government and politics.
You know,
and when I see who get that house, I'm telling you, I am telling you,
you said
one but Duns River bus again. So
yeah, but we leave it there. That's the question that we need to ask. who is the FinSAC report protecting, why and there must be a whole host of people who are being protected by while this report is under lock and key. But it's one of the injustices that's a scar on the conscience of Jamaica, and one that we want to ensure that on our watch, we do that which we are supposed to do. Yes.
Yes. Taboo, and I want to end by saying that when you see the color of the people who got bailed out, and when you see the color of the people who are under the same circumstances and were destroyed, it makes you draw the conclusion that most of us are too black to succeed. So the brown ones and white ones, too white and brown to fail, and we the black ones, too black to succeed. I'm not care who argue with me. That was my experience. I lived through it, and even now we're not quite out of the woods, but it could have worse, as them boy on the street would have said. Well, can you imagine a man who has never earned the reputation of being an entrepreneur, does not know what it is to find a pay bill when you have men waiting on that pay bill to go home to feed them family, and that man who has never made a pay bill in his life going to look at people who have 50 years experience as entrepreneur, black entrepreneur who built this country since independence, and you go and look on them and style them as bad debtors?
You know, Omar Davies really does have a lot to say he has not yet made, he needs to apologize, but he also, and he was the finance minister at the time, and this is why I'm identifying him.
I came into the party through Dr. Omar Davies because I knew him in the financial sector, where I had been like one of the leading corporate lawyers in Jamaica and very involved in financial engineering. And so when he was Minister of Finance, a lot of the things that required industry input, I was one of the representatives of the industry that he would deal with. I got to know him through that. And that's how I got into the PNP, really, through my relationship with him.
Now, Omar Davies really does have a lot to say he has not yet made, he needs to apologize, but he also, and he was the finance minister at the time, and this is why I'm identifying him, but he really does have to stand up before he dies and talk to those survivors, talk to those victims. Some killed themselves, some committed suicide. This is how serious this was. Talk to the Jamaican entrepreneurs, the black people in Jamaica who suffered so as a result of those of FinSAC, and making peace with God and the ancestors. Val, we'll continue the conversation. Where can we get the book before you go?
The book can be had at Kingston Bookshop, any of their branches, C-Mart Bookstore in Ligani Plaza, and online, Kindle, and Amazon.com. And I don't want anybody to tell me any foolishness about, oh, you're rich already, so then not support the book, because I've had that said to me. Can you imagine? No, that is the weight of the bad-mindedness.
They don't know your story.
I am trying to let the millennial generation know themselves and their identity. I don't care about money. As a matter of fact, if I could get this book sponsored, I would give it free to every Jamaican young person who is thinking of investing in Jamaica, to make certain that they never ever make what happened 20 odd years ago ever happen in this country again. But without knowledge, you have your eyes wide open in the dark because you don't know.
I have to leave it there. I'm so sorry. But on that potent, strong note, we're leaving it right there.
And the PNP does go up, 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 up. The People's National Party, past them, and when they back up again. And of course, the Labour right, them must say, we are sabotaging thing. They're so damn fool. Them paranoid. Make up on the mind. Work has to be done. It's not going to just happen so. We have to make sure, say, every comrade who voted for the People's National Party in 2011 and deliver the victory, if they're still alive, they have to go vote for when the election call. And even some who are not alive, you know, if them can deal with it, no problem. Because as them say, we name power. Power party.